Evening. I'm Tyler Smith.
And I believe we can move on to the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next item it will be presented by Tyler Smith.
Good evening. I'm Tyler Smith, with staff for the record. Item D1 under agenda is a historic site evaluation for the Greenbelt High School. And I'll start out with a couple procedural notes. In 1997, Greenbelt, Maryland Historic District was designated a National Historic Landmark. In March, which includes the subject property. In March 2013, the Greenbelt School.
Mr. Tyler, you're breaking up and disappearing.
Uh-oh.
We've got you.
If you could start your second sentence over.
Okay. So in 1997, the Greenbelt, Maryland Historic District became a National Historic Landmark. In March of 2013, the Greenbelt Middle School was designated a County Historic Resource by the 2013 approved Greenbelt Metro Area and Maryland 193 Corridor Sector Plan and Sectional Map Amendment. And I guess I would like to note a couple things about the classification as a historic resource. It's not quite the same as a historic site. It does fall under the protections of subtitle 29. Sort of related to that action tonight will not be a recommendation forwarded to the Planning Board and District Council, but will be a final action, which is a little bit different than some of the other evaluations we've done recently. And I guess the third note on the resource classification is that it can be sometimes used as a bookmark for either evaluation of the site to become or evaluation of the resource to become a historic site, or to be removed from the inventory. So there's a number of things that can trigger the evaluation. In this case, the City of Greenbelt requested an evaluation, and that was on April 11th, 2024. And now this is the public hearing regarding that. Okay. Is that all accurate? Did I leave anything out?
Do you
Sounds good.
want us to comment?
No, I think you're good, Tyler.
Okay.
Want to proceed.
Oh, the other clarification I should make at the beginning is that while this the historic resource is called Greenbelt Middle School, it is, most people know it as the Dora Kennedy French Immersion School, right on Greenbelt Road, and it was built as a high school and used as a junior high school. So I'll get into that later, but just so that the name doesn't confuse people right off the bat. Just want to make that clear. Okay, so now we'll get into it. The original building, first known as Greenbelt High School, was completed in 1938. It was constructed in a minimalist art modern style with 12-inch thick brick walls and concrete footings, and uses glass block on the interior and stairwells and corridors. Today, the building is an assemblage of 1- and 2-story white brick blocks, primarily with flat roofs, reflecting at least 6 phases of construction between 1938 and 1969. The building is generally organized around an interior courtyard with a west wing that steps down in elevation as it follows the topography of the site. And now, to sort of orient you to a somewhat complicated building, take you on a brief chronological tour. this is the first section, the original Greenbelt High School, built in 1938. Here was the first 1945 edition. This was added in 1953 and includes the gymnasium, and today is used as the front entrance of the school. This was a 1957 edition, which also included a brick kitchen addition, not in this picture, but on the west side of the building. Here is the 1961 edition, the west elevation, so what today is the back of the school. And this was the final 1969 edition, which included also a one-story portion on the opposite side of the building, not in the picture. So it is a rather complicated building. This kind of shows the building phases as we figured them out. So the oldest portion of the building, dating to 1938, displays minimalist Art Modern detail, including the emphasis of horizontal lines and grooves. The original recessed front entrance is flanked by 3 receding tiers of masonry and a discrete steel lintel. The additions, built in the Art Modern style with international style influences, are primarily rectangular, flat-roofed masses, emphasized with narrow coping of white or dark green color. The 1953 edition is distinguished by its gable roof and houses the gymnasium. Brick details found on the later editions echo the original design elements. The 1945 and 1953 editions use brick corbelling to emphasize horizontal lines, and the 1961 and 1969 editions include brick lattice work around the entrances. Windows consist primarily of metal casement windows and glass block. Doors are primarily metal and not original, although certain doors in the 45, 61, and 69 buildings appear to be original or have retained their original configuration with transoms and side lights. Notable elements include the 3 large vertical glass block sections of walls in the east gable end of the gymnasium and the vertically oriented 10-light metal frame windows above masonry sills. You can see those in the second story of the picture on the right. The west elevation had the most of them, and they're kind of unusual in their asymmetrical design. The school was originally sited to be equidistant from the Greenbelt Commercial Center to the east and the town of Berwyn Heights to the west. It sits near the top of a hill with a view to the west. The property is bounded by Breezewood Drive on the north, Edmonston Road on the east, and Greenbelt Road on the south, and Beltway Plaza is to the west. The 32.87 acre parcel includes the historic school building situated in the southeast portion, as well as athletic fields, a bus lot between the school and Beltway Plaza Mall, and the new Greenbelt Middle School built in 2012 to the north along Breezewood Drive. The east elevation, comprising the first 4 building faces Edmonston Road. It remains the most formal and reads as the front of the building. The 38, 45, and 53 building phases have all retained their own front entrances. The 53 edition is used as the main entrance today and has a covered walkway connecting it to the pickup and drop-off vehicle entrance. The area to the west of the school alongside Greenbelt Road was imagined as a wooded valley, and a remnant of that wooded area remained, separating the school from the bus lot on site. To the north of the school were the athletic fields, some of which remain today. for the construction of Capitol Beltway and extension of Kenilworth Avenue, the school was connected to the rest of the planned community of Greenbelt by a wooded trail, and the trail's underpass can still be seen under Edmonston Road near the school entrances drive and is now overgrown with vegetation and closed off with a chain link fence. You can see that in the photo. So the development of Greenbelt. In 1935 to 46, the development of Greenbelt, Maryland represents the first government-sponsored planned community in the United States, built on Garden City principles and embodies the regional planning principles and architectural ideals of the mid-1930s. 3 Greenbelt towns were built by Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal government along Garden City lines to respond to the Depression and the housing crisis in American cities. The town of Greenbelt, Maryland, the first, largest, and most complete of the 3 towns, was an attempt to build a large-scale, scientifically planned suburban community that would decentralize the population of Washington, D.C. The Greenbelt towns were comprehensive in scope, featuring housing, commerce, schools, and recreation. Their architectural treatments varied depending on the town, but Greenbelt was functional and modern, with the community buildings receiving a more conscious stylistic treatment. Today, Greenbelt remains one of the boldest examples of public housing on a community scale ever undertaken in this country. Greenbelt's significance can be felt in the emergence of regional planning as a discipline and in the widespread construction of planned communities after the 1940s. And so this aerial photo is of the core of Greenbelt, and then you can see Greenbelt Road curving around, and the high school would probably just be just off the top of this picture, halfway between Greenbelt and Berwyn Heights. Which I should note that Greenbelt was established as an all-white community. The research to date indicates that African-American families did not begin moving into Greenbelt until the late 1960s and early 1970s. Greenbelt High School, within the racially segregated Prince George's County school system, served a white student body throughout its early existence. Construction of Greenbelt High School began in 1937. High school students attended classes in the community grammar school until the new high school building was completed in April 1938. The cost of operating the school was split between the federal government and Prince George's County because the school was on federal land, but students from several surrounding communities, including Beltsville and Berwyn, also attended the school. When it was built, the high school could accommodate 300 pupils and offered standard high school subjects. 3 course tracks were offered in the school. First, academic for those planning to continue their studies at an institution of higher learning. 2, commercial for those planning on entering business. And 3, general to prepare students for trades such as nursing, laboratory assistants, and general vocations. In 1941, a team of experts of the county school system, the College of Education at the University of Maryland, and the State Department of Education compiled a report that concluded that a drastic reorganization of the school system was needed in Prince George's County. Members of this committee were appointed by Nicholas Warren, the county superintendent of schools. The report recommended a reorganization of the school system that was based on the premise that it should have 6 years of primary education, 3 years of junior high school, and 3 years of high school. The system at the time lacked a junior high school element. In the report, Greenbelt High School was recommended to be converted to a junior high school with 250 students. In December 1941, the Prince George's County School Board estimated that a 10-room addition to the Greenbelt High School was needed. The Prince George's County Board of Education noted in June 1941 that the expansion of the schools in Greenbelt would be necessary due to the construction of 1,000 new defense houses, which would double the town's population within a year. The superintendent of the county schools noted that federal funds would have to be used for school construction at Greenbelt, as the county school board could not build on sites that they did not own. At that time, the land was still owned by the federal government, and the Greenbelt elementary and high schools were operated under a contract between authorities in Greenbelt and the Prince George's commissioners. In June 1944, the Federal Works Agency approved a contract for the E.L. Daniels Company of Arlington, Virginia, to build an addition onto the high school. The addition was to be 2 stories high, constructed of brick and reinforced concrete. The addition was to include 4 classrooms, 1 science room, 1 multi-purpose room with an attached kitchen, first aid room, a teacher's room, administrative offices, and a storeroom. Construction on the addition started in August 1944. The new wing was described in the Greenbelt Cooperator as follows. At the end of this new wing is a multi-purpose room with the office on the left and classrooms on the right. The school, store, kitchen, and first aid room will also be located here. No space for lockers is provided in the new building. Upstairs will be 4 classrooms. When students returned to school in September 1944, enrollment had reached 408 students. In May 1945, Prince George's County School Board established a 12-year system for the white and black schools in the county. At that time, Maryland was one of only 3 states that did not have a 12-year school system at public expense. The change meant that approximately 6,000 students in the 7th and 8th grades would receive an extra year of high school instruction. Due to this change, the Greenbelt High School would receive 8th grade students from Beltsville and 7th and 8th grade students from Greenbelt and Berwyn elementary schools. In June 1949, the Prince George's County Board of Education, which had been operating the school, purchased the building and land from the federal government for $54,360. In June 1951, the last senior high class graduated and the school was converted into a junior high school. And this slide was a page from the 1945 Greenbelt High School yearbook dedicating the new addition, which you can just barely see kind of in the background of this picture. And this is a Sanborn fire insurance map, which was helpful in sort of figuring out the order in which the additions were built and their materials. So the school was the Greenbelt Junior High School from 1951 to 2012. The next addition in 1953 was in the form of a gymnasium with bleachers for seating 500 spectators. In April 1961, the Prince George's County School Board allocated more money for the renovation of Greenbelt Junior High School and the addition of 14 classrooms. The low bidder for the project was N.S. Stavro, Inc. of Washington, D.C. Construction was slated to be completed around February 1962 and included changes to several of the classrooms as well as the office. The 3rd and 4th expansion projects in 57 and 61 provided for a maximum enrollment of 925 students. This figure was exceeded by 50 students in 1965. To provide for the steadily increasing enrollment, it was necessary during the summer of 67 to assemble 3 temporary buildings directly in front of the main building. Enrollment for the 67-68 school year was 1,050 students, with a faculty of 55 teachers. The 6th edition, 1969, included a new cafeteria, administrative wing, plus enlargement of the library and faculty room. The building at this point could accommodate 1,250 to 1,300 students. So that sort of brings us up to the building's current form. You can see that the smaller 69 addition was later demolished just recently. And a note on racial integration. Although the U.S. Supreme Court's 1954 decision in Brown v. Board of Education had declared racial segregation in public education to be unconstitutional, most students in Prince George's County continued to attend racially segregated schools into the 1970s. The Prince George's County Board of Education pursued various tactics through the 1950s and 60s to avoid desegregation, including a freedom of choice policy, which largely preserved existing racial segregation. The Federal Office for Civil Rights of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare paid increasing attention to the county's non-compliance by the late 1960s. The court-ordered desegregation plan, effective January 29, 1973, transferred Black students to the Greenbelt Junior High School from the Thomas J. Pullen Junior High School, which had a 92% Black student body. And an interesting note to that is that the principal of Greenbelt Junior High during the period of racial integration was Francis Ellsworth Furgang, whose family owned Furgang Farm in Cheltenham, which is another county designated historic site. So the significance of Greenbelt High School is in part is that it is located on a discontiguous parcel that comprises part of the National Historic Landmark. The structure's simplified art moderne and international style design emphasizes functionalism, siting, materials, and economic constraints, all of which are characteristics of the architecture within the National Historic Landmark. As a whole, Greenbelt is significant for several reasons. As one of 3 planned communities built through the federal government's Green Towns program during the Great Depression, for its status as a model for community planning and design, and for its consistency of its architecture with the overall design principles of the community. And the subject, Greenbelt Middle School, is an important part of that history. The subject historic resource exemplifies several heritage themes identified in the 2010 Prince George's County Approved Historic Sites and Districts Plan, including political history, education, suburban growth, and is a rare example of art moderne international style architecture within the inventory of historic resources. It is also significant as an extant part of the Greenbelt National Historic Landmark. The Greenbelt Middle School has retained its essential form as a mid-20th century school building, with much of its historic fabric intact. I particularly like this yearbook photo that I found for showing just how recognizable the building is today from, compared to this 1943 photo. Additions built in 45, 53, 57, 61, and 69 follow a similar architectural style and have acquired their own historical significance, reflective of the county's history. The building has retained a cohesive architectural style, maintained its recognizable visual connection with the Greenbelt National Historic Landmark, and continued to serve its historical purpose for approximately 85 years. As such, the school retains a moderately high degree of integrity, location, setting, design, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. The Historic Preservation Commission Policy 1-87, evaluating integrity, degree of alteration, and scarcity and frequency, states that a property's integrity should be considered in the context of scarcity of the resource type it represents, with a less restrictive standard of the integrity applied when few or no other similar properties exist in the inventory of historic resources. And so this slide shows the National Register Landmark district in the shaded blue with the dark purple outline. And it's a little bit unusual in that it's in 4 pieces. And so the Greenbelt High School is in this in this portion in the bottom left of your screen. Despite Greenbelt's status as a National Historic Landmark, there's only one other structure associated with Greenbelt that is a county-designated historic site, which is the Greenbelt Center School, which is located over here. There are 3 other properties associated with Greenbelt included in the inventory of historic resources: the Walker Family Cemetery, the Turner Family Cemetery, and the Hamilton Family Cemetery. However, these resources predate the purchase of the land by the Resettlement Administration and are not standing structures associated with the planned community. Greenbelt Middle School can be found to have sufficient integrity to convey its significance as an integral part of one of 3 planned communities built through the federal government's Green Towns program during the Great Depression, as a part of Greenbelt's model for community planning and design, and for its architecture, which is consistent with the overall design principles of the community. So, in conclusion, staff concludes that the Greenbelt Middle School meets 4 of the 9 criteria of Subtitle 29, 104A, 1A1, 1A4, 2A1, and 2A5. Staff further concludes that in weighing both the alterations that have been made to the school and the scarcity of the resource type within the inventory of historic resources, the Greenbelt Middle School could be found to possess sufficient integrity to convey, represent, or contain the values and qualities for which it is judged significant. Staff further concludes that although this property has been identified in the inventory of historic resources as the Greenbelt Middle School, it would be appropriate to update the name of the resource, should it be designated a historic site, to the Greenbelt High School to better reflect its historic use and disambiguate it from the contemporary Greenbelt Middle School in active use on the same property. And so with that, staff recommends to the Historic Preservation Commission that Greenbelt High School, Historic Resource 6700406, and its approximately 12.58 acre environmental setting, part of Tax Map 26, Grid B4, Parcel 10, as shown in Figure 1 of staff's memorandum, be designated a Prince George's County Historic Site as meeting the following criteria in Subtitle 29, 104A, 1A1, 1A4, 2A1, and 2A5. And that concludes staff's
Mr. Tyler, you disappeared. Mr. Tyler?
I'm still here. I almost made it to the end.
You almost made it. If you could read the, I think I heard 1A4. You faded out before you got to the last A1, A2, A3s.
Okay.
Just for the recording, maybe you should read the recommendation again.
Okay. And maybe I'll just note, which I hadn't totally brought up in the rest of the presentation, that outlined in red is our recommended environmental setting, which does not include the entire parcel and purposefully excludes the bus lot and the current Greenbelt Middle School. So staff recommends to the Historic Preservation Commission that Greenbelt High School Historic Resource 6700406 and its approximately 12.58 acre environmental setting be designated a Prince George's County Historic Site as meeting the following criteria in Subtitle 29, 104A, 1A1, 1A4, 2A1, and 2A5.
And that concludes the staff presentation?
Yes.
Yes, I have a question. As you were going through your very descriptive list of additions, I think I heard that the latest small addition was demolished. Did I hear something correctly?
Yes. We believe that there were sort of 2 additions constructed in 1969, one of which was demolished in 2015. 2015 or 2016.
But that addition was part of this resource?
Yes.
Well, my question is, how did it get demolished? Did we not meet that month?
That is a very good question. One I had not considered.
Well, you hold on to that question. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I thought you were going to give me a clever answer that it was not in the environmental setting or something. We'll come back to that. My colleagues, do you have questions for Mr. Tyler?
This is
I have a question.
Oh,
We'll ladies first.
Yes, I will yield.
okay. This is Commissioner Jenkins. I just wanted to make sure when he highlighted the areas that were to be excluded, is it actually stated that in the recommendation? Was that actually stated in the recommendation?
Tyler, you're muted.
I guess we reference a figure in the staff memo, which shows what makes up the 12.58 acres.
Okay.
So our motion would be, I don't want to suggest what our motion is, but if there was a motion to designate this historic, we would only be designating structures within the 12 point whatever acreage, which thereby would exclude anything not in the 12 plus acres.
Correct.
Okay.
I heard Commissioner Jenkins, a follow-up on your part?
No, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
No follow-up.
Okay, I heard another voice looking for recognition.
This is Commissioner Reff for the record. And this may be the question for staff or for our attorney, but in the past, when we have looked at like redesignating a resource or even voting to designate a resource, when we've looked at name changes, I can't recall if we worded that into the recommendation because it was a departure from the existing name, right, for the site, or if we need to, include that or not. And so should we, as a part of the recommendation, make that name change language, or can we not worry about it, I guess?
Excellent question.
And if I can try, for the record, Tom Gross with Historic Preservation Section staff. I'll try, and then our legal counsel can correct me. Staff's position would be that the resource was included in the 2013 sector plan with a particular name. It's not unusual for properties to be documented or first included in the inventory based on some amount of research, and then subsequent research reveals that a different name would be more appropriate and more reflective of its history. That was the case here. So subsequent to the 2013 plan and prompted by the City of Greenbelt's request that the property be evaluated, staff undertook additional and fresh research, which determined that given its history and its original use as a high school, that would be a more appropriate name. And again, staff's position would be if the Historic Preservation Commission were to designate this property as a historic site, it could do so with a different name other than what was included in the 2013 sector plan. But I will defer to counsel if he has a different position. That's just staff's take informing this recommendation the way we did.
Thank you, Tom. Actually, Commissioner Reff, that is, Tom and I are in agreement. That would be my position as well.
So Commissioner Reff's question then is, should we note in the recommendation somewhere that it will be known as the Greenbelt High School?
Mr. Chairman, it is in the recommendation. Staff is recommending that the HPC designate the Greenbelt High School.
Okay. Commissioner Reff, follow up.
No, I'm satisfied with the answer that that we can designate it as named now, and that the previous kind of naming is you know, not necessarily important to our motion if we make it tonight. So thank you.
Commissioner, any additional questions for staff?
Commissioner Carpenter Rock, to weigh in.
Yes, sorry. Hi, this is Commissioner Carpenter Rock. I'm not sure if this was mentioned already, but you said this is still a functioning school, is that right?
Yes, correct. Now it's the Dora Kennedy French Immersion School.
Okay, I'm just wondering if our recommendation would have any impact on the way the school functions, or any practical impact for the delivery of
I think
education.
that would be I think that's a question for the representative of the school system, if there is one here to speak to it.
Okay.
But staff, do you have any ideas?
I will, since I was speaking, this is Casey Rowan. I'll just say we do not have a member representative from the schools who has signed up to speak. I do see Dawn Holton, who did register, indicated she did not wish to speak. She has raised her hand. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave that to your discretion as to whether you would.
Commissioner Carpenter Rock, will see if the representative of the school system will address your question when we're finished asking staff questions. So keep that question ready.
Okay, thank you.
My colleagues, anybody else with question for staff? Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I may, again, Tom Gross for the record, this may serve as a partial answer to Commissioner Carpenter Rock, although I can't speak to how it may directly impact the school's delivery of its services or how it functions on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, as you know, if the property were, or this portion of the property were to be designated as a historic site, that would bring it under the full jurisdiction of the HPC through Subtitle 29, and in particular, its historic area work permit requirement. So on a daily basis, if the school were to continue operating as it has, and not propose any changes to its structure, no additions, no demolition, no alterations, etc., then the designation may not have very much effect. However, at the moment that such a change is put forward by the school board to alter, demolish, or add on to the building, then the historic preservation's jurisdiction and the historic area work permit requirement would kick in effect. So that's just, as a general statement regarding the effect of historic site designation, but how it might affect the day-to-day operations of the school really depends on what the school's plans are for the building going forward.
Thank you.
Let's see, I forgot where I was. Commissioners, anybody else with a question for staff? Hearing none, Madam Liaison, will the representative of the school system who didn't sign up to speak but waved her hands, would she be willing to address Commissioner Carpenter Rock's question?
Yes, Ms. Holton, if you're still with us, please, you can go ahead and unmute or turn your camera on, and Mr. Farrar will administer the oath before you begin.
Yes, I did. I turned my camera on.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holton. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record, and then proceed with your testimony.
My name is Dawn Holton. I'm the Senior Mechanical Engineer for the Department of Capital Programs at Prince George's County Public Schools. Our business address is 13300 Old Marlboro Pike, Upper Marlboro, 20772. Now the question, I believe, is anybody able to repeat? I believe it's just about, will it hinder the operation of the program as it currently is in the building right now?
Commissioner Carpenter Rock, do you want to ask your question again?
Yes, this is Commissioner Carpenter Rock. Yeah, will it either hinder or impact, particularly in a negative way, the delivery of educational services in that structure, in that building?
To my estimation, no.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Holt, I have a question. Are there plans for the immersion school going forward to stay in the building?
The recommendation that our office received from the previous chief executive officer, Dr. Goldson, was to relocate this program, which is a regional program. It's not a native program to a particular neighborhood or anything in that area, to another location within that same region. That is actually in another building that is a lot better for our maintenance staff to maintain than in this existing facility. I know somebody actually mentioned a portion of that addition that was demolished. I believe that was in 2014 or 2015. It might have been like around 2014. That was when the school reopened. Initially, the school, like you all said, was Greenbelt Middle School prior to the transfer of the land from the City of Greenbelt to build the new school at the location directly behind the existing building. So the building remained vacant for a couple of years before they decided to take two programs that was in the Robert Goddard building and separate them and move the Dora Kennedy program to this existing facility. When that happened, there was a $16 million project to do some capital improvements, and one of which was to do some renovations to that old main office portion, the small portion at the top in the diagram. And when I read the information back in the files, this was prior to my arrival, so that's all I can do is just, read the information in the file. It was an enormous amount of hazardous materials that was in that portion of the building, and in order to remediate those materials, I believe it wasn't affordable, and it would cause basically tear down that portion of the building. So the recommendation at that time by the previous staff was to actually remove that portion of the building.
Thank you very much for that. Ms. Holt, I know you didn't sign up to speak, and I thank you for jumping in for our questions. And so I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you want to speak? Or do you want to go back?
When I signed up, the information on it was to present. So I did not have a formal presentation, and that was why I checked that box.
All right. Because we don't want to say that we didn't hear whatever you want to tell us.
That's no problem.
But you're still available just in case my colleagues have additional questions for you?
Yes.
Yes. So colleagues. Wow. We're on good behavior tonight.
I think there might be other questions. Commissioner Jenkins, do you have any follow-up questions?
Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm just not totally clear when it says, and it might be because I deal with real estate and everything has to be precise. Otherwise, you might end up with a lawsuit. So when it says approximately 12.58 acres, I guess at some point it'll get defined down to however the meets and bounds and all of that at some point.
So Ms. Jenkins, I think that's a staff question.
Oh, okay.
And I can, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, this is Tom Gross for the record, I can try to explain staff's position here. So, Commissioner Jenkins, it's the typical case with a historic resource being designated as a historic site is that the property boundary become the environmental setting for the historic site, so that everything within the property boundary is subject to the regulation of Subtitle 29. There are cases, however, when staff recommends that a different environmental setting be established for the historic site to specifically exclude parts of the property that have no contribution to the property's historical significance. Most recently, this was done, I believe, with the Union Bethel AME Church in Brandywine, which was a historic resource that had a historic building attached to which was a much larger modern building. And it was not staff's intention, nor was it the HPC's decision to designate the entire property as the historic site, but rather, in that case, merely the footprint of the historic building, or I should say everything excluding the footprint of the non-historic building. So you actually, if you look at that historic site, it's sort of in a donut. There have been cases where only the footprint of a building has been designated as the historic site, and anything outside of that would not require a historic area work permit. In this case, because there are parts of the property outside of the historic building that nevertheless do bear on its historical significance, and Tyler mentioned some of those, the underpass, the woods to the north, the environmental setting that you see represented in this figure on the screen, and which we measure as approximately 12.58 acres, that would become the historic site. Now, where it really matters is where somebody comes in and wants to do something on the property, and a determination has to be made. Well, is it within that environmental setting or is it outside it? It was drawn with an attempt to be logical. In other words, the modern middle school and the property immediately surrounding that was purposely excluded. The same with the bus lot and the playing fields. What the line represents is the property boundary and then bisecting the property to exclude those things. So again, if a proposal, I suspect that if a proposal is brought forward for this property to alter it, it's going to be fairly clear as to whether it's inside or outside that line. You are correct that often when an environmental setting is defined as less than a property, a meets and bounds survey is done. I'm not saying that that couldn't be done here, but that's typically done when a developer is requesting that an environmental setting be established within a development. And because the developer is asking the HPC for this, we require that a very specific meets and bounds survey be done. That doesn't really happen in the case of historic resource, because staff is the one that's bringing this to the HPC, and we're many things, but we're not surveyors. So that's why we try to represent it as carefully as we can and with a strong basis. And again, it really matters when a proposal is brought forward for the property, and we make that determination that at the time, is it within the environmental setting or outside of it?
Okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate the explanation for sure. Thank you.
My colleagues, questions for Ms. Holt while she's still willing. Holton, I'm sorry. Ms. Holton.
Yes, thank you. This is Commissioner Carpenter-Rock. One more follow-up question. So I'm just trying to clarify, when do you either think or know when it won't be functioning as a school anymore, that that program is going to be moving out of there? Is it for the next school year, or is it imminent?
Based on the information I have from my chief operating officer's desk, I believe it may be next school year or the year after.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, we do have additional individuals signed up to speak on this. As well.
I just want to make sure that the school system can sit back now and watch the proceedings. If there are no more questions, we'll move on to the next people or entities that have signed up. So hearing none, thank you very much, Ms. Holton.
Excuse
me, this is Commissioner Pruden. Just this is more procedural. Just want to remind people that we do not include things in the chat as part of our official record.
Oh, am I missing something in the chat?
Yes, I've submitted a response to that. Now, the person who asked it does have the ability, if they stay to the end of the meeting, to speak during the public comment period. It will not be included in the record, but
Wanted to make sure that they didn't think they were being ignored. Thank you.
that's why I responded.
Thank you, Commissioner Pruden. Okay, now I'm going to try Ms. Roan. Who signed up next?
Thank you. So the next person who signed up to speak is Terri Hruby, representing the City of Greenbelt. Are you with us still, Ms.
Yes, I
Hruby?
am. Yes,
Okay,
I'm here.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hruby,
Yes,
do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth?
I do.
Would you kindly state your name and your address for the record, and then proceed with your testimony?
Sure. Terri Hruby. I'm business address is 15 Crescent Road, Greenbelt, Maryland. Actually, the other designated historic site, the Greenbelt Center School. That is where I'm presenting from this evening. And I want to thank the commission. I'm the director of planning community development. Been with the city for 30 plus years now. And I first want to start out by thanking the commission as well as staff for their hard work and moving forward in addressing the city's requests for the Greenbelt High School to be designated a county historic site. The city has growing concerns about the future of this site, particularly given recent, if you will, announcements by the representatives of the school regarding relocation of those programs out of there. So we're a little concerned about the unknown future, but more particularly, I think, as well and thoroughly articulated within the staff report, we firmly believe that the historic significance of this site does meet the criteria to be designated a historic site. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because obviously Mr. Smith spent a lot of time doing that, and I think he clearly and thoroughly articulated the importance in terms of the architecture details of the building and the setting itself. As indicated, it is a contributing resource within the National Historic Landmark designation. It clearly displays our modern detailing. And again, I'm here speaking in full support of the staff's recommendation. I did want to just speak to one criteria, and I will admit that we do not have hard evidence of this, and we're hoping through additional research we will be able to confirm that our thoughts on this. But we do believe that with additional research, we may find that this site also meets criterion 2A2. And I say that through consultation with many of you probably know Megan Searing-Young, our museum curator. Some of you may know our resident historian, Isabel Gournay, who's done a lot of research and publications regarding the history of Greenbelt. But my understanding is that Douglas Ellington, a well-known architect, was a co-design leader in the Greenbelt project. And he is also an architect who's keenly interested in school design, and there are examples of that elsewhere. And we believe through his involvement in Greenbelt that he most likely also had some involvement in this project as well. But again, we do not have at this time evidence suggesting that. But I was asked to just bring that up to the board as well for consideration. So in just closing, I want to reiterate the city's support for the staff recommendation, and thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. No questions. Thank you very much. Ms. Roan, anybody else signed up on this item?
Yes, we did have also Dr. Isabel Gournay. I don't see your name in the list, but if you're with us, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Feel free to turn on your camera, and Mr. Farrar can administer the oath. Dr. Gournay, are you on the call? I don't see her name in the list, so she may not have joined us this evening.
All right. Okay, and anybody else?
No.
No. My colleagues, do you have any additional questions for staff before I close the record? For the city? For the school? Okay. I am going to close the record and ask for a motion.
All right, Commissioner Pruden for the record. I move that we, let me see here. I move that Greenbelt High School Historic Resource 67-004-06 and its approximately 12.6 acre environmental setting, part of tax map 26, grid B4, parcel 10, as shown in figure 1 of this memorandum, be designated a Prince George's County Historic Site as meeting the following criteria in subtitle 29-104A, 1A1, 1A4, 2A1, and 2A5.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Jenkins, second.
Motion made by Commissioner Pruden, seconded by Commissioner Jenkins. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote, call for the roll.
Chairman Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Carpenter-Rock,
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Norwood,
Aye.
Commissioner Porter,
Aye.
Commissioner Pruden,
Aye.
Commissioner Rath.
Aye.
The motion carries. The chair notes that he thinks his mother was in the last class to graduate from that building. It just dawned on me, 1951.
Wow.
We could have added a
Okay.
criterion.
Is that another criteria?
I know that's all right. I just did some math in my head. I know she went to Greenbelt High, but it never dawned on me exactly where that was until right now with the dates. So it's kind of, I got a little bit of history this evening. All right. Well, we're moving on to the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Daniel Tana is going to present the next two items. Daniel, do you want to take control of the slide presentation?